They say college is the best time of your life. Freedom, parties, friendships, unforgettable memories. They don't tell you that sometimes memories are unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. It started as a weekend trip. A few of us were just trying to decompress before finals. The pressure had been piling up. Papers, labs, internships, life stuff. We needed to breathe. So, when Travis found an old post on a hiking forum about an abandoned campground called Crooked Creek, we jumped at the idea. No tourists, no phone signal, no noise, he said. It's off-grid. Total isolation. Just us and the trees. We should have known better. There were 6 of us. Me, my girlfriend Danny, her best friend Lex, Lex's boyfriend Travis, and our other 2 friends, Mark and Jessa. We'd been close since freshman year, hanging out in dorms, surviving midterms, and pretending we weren't all falling apart inside. This was supposed to be our goodbye trip, our last adventure together, before the real world came knocking. We left early Friday morning in Travis's dad's beat-up truck, loaded with gear, food, beer, and a half-broken GPS that barely worked once we got off the highway. The last stretch was nothing but dirt roads and towering pine trees that seemed to lean inward like they didn't want us there. Crooked Creek wasn't a real campground. There were no marked trails, no fire pits, no ranger stations, just an old clearing near a pond in the middle of nowhere. Perfect, Travis kept saying. Authentic. When we finally found the spot, it was eerie. Beautiful, sure, in a wild, untouched sort of way, but eerily quiet. The pond was stagnant, the water too still. No birds, no wind, just silence and trees that went on forever. We set up camp, trying to shake the unease. The first night was normal enough. Music, laughter, s'mores, ghost stories. Mark tried to scare everyone with that old urban legend about the goat men, but it came off cheesy. Still, Danny didn't let go of my arm the whole night. I remember looking up at the stars and thinking, this is what peace feels like. That was the last time I felt it. The first incident happened around 2 a.m. I woke up to footsteps outside our tent. Not animal sounds. These were heavy, deliberate steps, circling us. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Danny stirred beside me. Did you hear that? I nodded, heart racing. We didn't move. I held my breath, listening as the footsteps slowed, then paused, right outside the tent flap. I reached slowly for the flashlight, but knocked over our water bottle. The thud was soft, but enough to break the silence. The footsteps stopped, then retreated, fading into the forest. We lay there in silence for what felt like hours. Eventually, I peeked outside. Nothing but darkness and trees. No sign of anyone. I told myself it had to be a deer, maybe a bear. In the morning, we found strange prints in the dirt around our tents. Too large for a human, too defined for an animal. Toes, barefoot. Lex was the first to speak. Someone was out here. Travis brushed it off. It's probably just a hiker. This land isn't marked. But no one had heard a vehicle. No one had passed us on the trail. No tire tracks. No signs of life beyond us. That night, the mood shifted. The jokes felt forced. The laughter shorter. The next day, we went fishing at the pond. The water was mirror smooth, almost unnatural. It didn't even ripple when we cast our lines. The sky had turned gray, clouds thick and unmoving. I was on the dock with Jessa when she suddenly went stiff. Jake, she whispered, don't look yet. Just, there's someone watching us. I glanced up. Across the pond, partially hidden in the trees, stood a man, still as a statue, tall, dressed in dark, tattered clothing, overalls or a coat, something old and stained. His face was obscured by shadow, but I could feel his eyes on us. "Hey!" Travis called from the bank. "You all right over there?" The man didn't move. He just stood there, watching, unblinking. Then slowly, he turned and walked back into the forest. We sat in stunned silence. "Who the hell was that?" Danny asked. "No gear, no backpack," Mark said. "That's not a hiker. Maybe he lives out here," Jessa offered. "In this?" Travis waved toward the woods. "What's he even doing? Spying on people?" Lex shivered. "I don't like this." We decided to stay one more night. Just one. We should have left right then. Lex vanished that night. She left the tent around midnight to use the bathroom, just a few feet past the trees. She didn't take a flashlight. She didn't come back. At first, we thought she was playing a prank. She was the kind to scare people, pop out from behind trees. But minutes turned into an hour, then 2. We searched with flashlights, screaming her name until our voices cracked. We checked the pond, the trails, even the truck. Nothing. Then we found something. A piece of her scarf snagged on a tree branch, torn, and something else. A muddy footprint, barefoot, long, narrow. Wrong. Danny wanted to leave. Travis refused. He was furious, terrified, desperate. "I'm not abandoning her." We agreed to search again in the morning, but none of us slept. At dawn, Mark found a trail we hadn't noticed before, partially hidden, buried under leaves and moss. It led deeper into the forest. We followed it, hearts in our throats, moving faster than we should have. That's when we found the cabin. It looked like it had been swallowed by the woods. Rotting walls, broken roof, door hanging half open. The windows were black with grime. Something about it felt wrong. Travis didn't hesitate. He sprinted ahead, shouting Lex's name. We followed, breathless. Inside, it smelled of mold, blood, and something older. Decay. In the center of the room was a chair. Lex was tied to it, gagged, her face bruised and eyes swollen from crying. When she saw us, she screamed against the gag, shaking violently. Travis dropped to his knees and untied her, sobbing. I got you, baby." Lex kept looking toward the door. "He said he was coming back," she whispered, once the gag was off. "He said he was going to come back tonight." That's when the door creaked shut behind us. We turned. The man stood in the doorway. Only now we could see him. Really see him. His face was off, like his skin was stretched too tightly across his skull. His eyes were milky, unfocused. His lips were dry and cracked, barely covering his blackened teeth. He held a rusted hatchet in one hand, and he smiled. Chaos broke out. Travis lunged at him, screaming. The man slashed his shoulder with the hatchet, but Travis kept hitting him, punch after punch, like he was possessed. Mark grabbed a fireplace poker and joined in, forcing the man back. "Run!" Danny screamed. We hauled Lex up and ran, through the trees, not looking back, branches clawing at us, our breath ragged. The forest seemed alive, closing in. We didn't stop until we reached the truck. Travis was bleeding badly, but conscious. Mark hot-wired the ignition. He'd learned how for a prank once, and we peeled out, dirt flying. We drove for an hour before we found a gas station with a landline. The police found the cabin 2 days later, but it was empty. No sign of the man. No footprints. No blood. The chair was there. The ropes. But nothing else. They found other things, though. Buried bones. Shredded clothing. Old IDs. Some were decades old. One belonged to a girl who'd gone missing in 1997. The case was ruled unresolved. No suspect. No arrest. Just a cautionary tale. We all dropped out the following semester. Travis moved away. Danny and I broke up. Mark won't go near the woods. Lex doesn't speak anymore. Not about that night. As for me, I still see him, in dreams, in reflections. Sometimes I swear he's standing at the edge of my vision, watching, waiting. They say the forest reclaims everything. Maybe some things should stay lost,